been forced to face her. Was it so very wrong of her to enjoy the moment? She thought perhaps not. She rested her hands flat on her thighs and looked at him. "How can I help you?" His dark gaze settled on her face.
"Really? You're not going to admit you know what any of this is about?"
She blinked deliberately, then opened her eyes wide. "When you made your appointment to speak with me, you didn't mention a subject." Of course, she knew why he was here, but again, a little emotional torture seemed the right kind of payback. A muscle twitched in his jaw.
"All right, we'll play this your way. I'm Sam Ridge. I'm a partner at SCORE."
She grinned. "I know who you are, Sam. We don't have to pretend that much. Just tell me what you want and we'll move on from there."
He swore under his breath. "You're friends with Taryn. You've done work for her. How long are you going to punish me?"
He was right about Taryn. She and Dellina were friends and had worked together several times. SCORE, the PR firm in question, had moved to Fool's Gold just after the first of the year. 3 of the partners were former NFL players, and Taryn was the glue that held the company together. "I haven't completely decided how long you should be punished," she admitted, wondering if batting her eyes again would be too over the top. He sighed heavily.
"Fine. We'll do this your way. Now that we've moved our business here, my partners and I want to have a big party for our clients. We've booked a hotel, but that's as far as the planning has gotten."
"A party," she breathed, and pressed her hand to her chest. "That sounds really nice." In truth, being a neurosurgeon or the person who used to land the space shuttle probably made the top 10 list of jobs designed to give a person an ulcer. Sam would guess whoever was in charge of the ball dropping in Times Square on New Year's Eve probably had a few sleepless nights. But he would add that being a kicker for an NFL team had its moments of stress. When he'd been with the LA Stallions, he'd been responsible for 26 wins, including 3 during playoff games and 1 Super Bowl victory. He knew what it was like to have everyone watching him, both in person and on TV, and have his job performance critiqued endlessly. He'd always known the outcome the instant his foot connected with the ball, and he was famous for turning away and letting the sounds from the crowd tell him if he was right. He was used to pressure. He'd lived it and breathed it. But he'd never faced down anyone like Dellina Hopkins before, and the worst part about it was, she was right to give him a hard time. Sam shook his head.
"Okay," he said. I was wrong."
Her brown eyes twinkled. "Wrong about what?"
"That night, leaving the way I did, it was just—" He motioned toward the hallway. "Those dresses and that list, all of it. I'm not looking to get married."
"Neither am I."
"You're the one with a room full of wedding gowns."
Her full lips pressed together. Sam tried not to notice, but her mouth was one of the first things that had caught his attention back on Valentine's Day. He'd been staying at Ronan's Lodge for a few weeks, until escrow closed on his new place. He'd gone down to the bar for a drink, only to realize it was Valentine's Day, and the place was crawling with couples. As he'd recently sworn off women, again, he'd started to turn around to go back to his room. But before he could safely escape, he'd spotted Dellina. She'd been with friends. They were laughing and talking. No one had noticed him. She'd been pretty enough, but then she'd smiled, and it was like getting kicked in the gut. And he was a man who knew the power of a good kick. He'd sent over a tray of drinks for the table, they'd invited him to join them, and an hour later he and Dellina had been having dinner together. Later, when he'd kissed her, he'd discovered her mouth had been as exciting and intriguing as he'd hoped. She'd invited him home, he'd said yes, and the rest had been incredible. Until he'd gotten up in the night and found himself in a nightmare. He'd spent the past 5 months avoiding her. Tough to do in a town the size of Fool's Gold. The situation had been complicated by the fact that he'd enjoyed her company and had really wanted to see her again. Now that his company needed her services, he'd been forced to suck it up. So here he was,